Hello, sisters. Welcome to the Sacred Medicine Podcast, weaving powerful, soulful practices into functional medicine. Step into this beautiful space of devotion and explore everything from nurturing foods, rituals, sexuality, and awakening your innate sensuality. It is time to own your radiance. This is the Sacred Medicine Podcast. You are listening to the Sacred Medicine Podcast, and today we will be talking to Dr. Melina Roberts. She is a naturopathic doctor and author of Building a Healthy Child, as well as the founder of Advanced Naturopathic Medical Center in Calgary. So today we are talking all about how to build a healthy child and what that means. So we go into specifics. So like from birth to age 3, some of the things to do, some of the foods to be consuming, of what foods to not be consuming. And you're also going to learn one of the most popular things that parents give their child. And I see it all the time. I see children at the grocery store, out shopping in their strollers, and the one thing they are consuming, and I see it time and time again. I mean, countless. And that is the one thing that she says to not be consuming. So you definitely want to listen in today and learn about what to be feeding and not feeding your child, what to be concerned about even as a pregnant mom, some of the things that you really need to be consuming and eating to sort of building a really great terrain for your unborn child, and then what to be doing once your child is born. So listen in. I learned so much. I mean, I'm not a mother, but I do have a nephew, and also my patients have children. So this was such great information to just pass along to my patients as well. So listen in. I think you will be, you learn so much about some of the things to eliminate from your child's diet, some of the things that have toxins and just are not healthy. So without further ado, on to the show. Thank you for being here, Dr. Melina Roberts.
Thank you so much for having me, Margaret. I'm excited to be here.
I haven't had much discussion about children on my podcast. So I think this is going to be perfect because I've always had this belief that, obviously health starts as when you're a child. Like it shouldn't start when you're 40 years old, though it can if you need to suddenly make a change in your diet or your lifestyle, certainly can happen at any age. But I think in order to prevent chronic illnesses and so on, I think that what you're eating and what you're doing as a child, obviously parents will be the ones that are providing the food and all of that. I think starting at that early age is really important.
Yeah, and I think that that's huge, right? I think that that's the challenge, is that we're not thinking about how important it is to build our child's health right from the beginning so that we can build children into strong, healthy adults.
Mm-hmm. And so can you give us a little bit of a background as to what happened, your journey as a child?
For sure. So my journey, I think which happens with a lot of healthcare practitioners, is a personal journey. And in my personal journey, I was a kid who had really bad allergies and eczema. I'd break out in rashes to pretty much everything I ate and everything in the environment. And I would really just have rashes all over my body all the time, which I thought was just something that I had to learn to live with. And when I was about 13 years old, a family friend said to my parents, you should try taking her to see a naturopathic doctor. And back then we had no idea what naturopathic medicine was or what they did, if they could help me.
Sure.
But we were pretty open-minded and decided to give it a try. And with seeing this doctor and following his plan, within a pretty short period of time, all of my allergies and eczema all cleared up. So
amazing.
Yeah, to me it was like magic, because I really had no idea how it all worked.
Right.
So that was like my personal experience, but that was my first insight into realizing that the body had this ability to be able to heal itself. And that was also where I really realized that I wanted to become a doctor. I wanted to be able to have that kind of influence on people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was my starting point to really getting that introduction to naturopathic medicine.
I'm curious, what did your parents think after they saw, the eczema resolve, your allergies go away? What were their thoughts?
Yeah, so they were actually really amazed with naturopathic medicine too. So they were telling everyone, and they were also going to see the naturopath themselves.
Sure.
So they were super impressed with the process, and happy that we could finally get to the bottom of my allergies and eczema. Because I think, like my skin, like I would itch my skin until it would like bleed. And I think my family just hated watching me suffer through that. So they were happy to see that I was no longer suffering from this, and it wasn't so reactive, and that my skin was clearing up and looking like normal.
Have you had eczema since?
No, I haven't. Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I do notice that if I do anything kind of like, my diet is pretty clean and tight. And if I kind of do anything out of that, the first thing I'll notice is that something will show up on my skin. It might not be a rash, but I might be like a breakout or something like that. Right. So definitely my skin is where I exhibit symptoms.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So you started on this path, you became a naturopath, and your focus was really on children.
It actually wasn't. So then when I went through the naturopathic college, in my second year in university, at the naturopathic college, my dad was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And this was pretty devastating to me, because my dad is a very important person in my life. Mm-hmm. And I started just diving into the research on natural cancer treatments. And I was amazed to see how much there was in the literature, how much data there was. And I was just trying to find solutions. Unfortunately, at that point in time, I just didn't have enough time, because my dad passed away 9 short months later.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, but I felt like I was really on to something in terms of my research and all the answers I was coming across. And mm-hmm. I decided to just focus my practice on treating cancer patients. So that became the focus of my practice, and it is to this day. But what I realized when I was treating a lot of cancer patients is that what it really came down to was healing their gut, and that we had to get their gut in balance in order for us to get their systems back into balance. So I really realized that was one of the root causes. And realizing that, we kind of fast forward a few years, and I was pregnant with my daughter, and I wanted to try to figure out, was there a way for us to be able to get her gut health correct right from the beginning, so that we could prevent, the allergies and the eczema that I went through my childhood. And could we prevent chronic disease in her future if we got that gut health right from the beginning. And I realized that was possible. It's super interesting when you read the research, because between birth and age 3 is where we build the foundation of that microbiome. So that ecosystem of bacteria and fungus that live within our gut. Mm-hmm. And that was pretty profound to me, because it's like, okay, well, we can have a huge influence on these systems if we can build that foundation properly. And so that's what my book is really about. It's about how do we build that foundation so that that's strong, because that foundation is what they will have for the rest of their lives. So can we build that really strong, and it is possible.
Wow, that's amazing. So what are some of the main points for that? Like, if there are women now who are soon to, or are pregnant, or will be, or have a child that they just gave birth to, or like, let's say what if it's beyond age 3, or they're hearing this now and their child is like 5 or 7 or older? Is it too late?
No, it's not too late. It just takes more time and effort. So the way that we build that microbiome is, first of all, at birth, is the way that a child is born. So whether if it's a C-section, like a C-section baby has a very different microbiome to a baby who is a vaginal birth baby. So that's our starting point, is that, ideally we want to have a vaginal delivery.
Right.
The second way that we start to introduce more microbes and into this baby is through breastfeeding. So again, a breastfed baby has a very different microbiome than a formula-fed baby. So in an ideal world, we want baby to be breastfed. And then how that microbiome continues to develop and have more diversity in terms of those microbes is through the environment. And so that's interaction with the environment. So, we want our kids playing with dirt. And then we also, and it's also the way we introduce foods. So that's what I go through in terms of my book, is like I go through how to introduce foods in a way that helps to build up that microbiome. Because what we know about that microbiome is that it has to have 2 main characteristics. It needs to have balance. So balance between what we call healthy bacteria and unhealthy bacteria. Those need to be in balance, and they're in a symbiotic balance. And then we also need to have diversity in terms of those microbiomes. So sure. You need to have diversity in terms of those microbes that live within the gut. And some of the ways that we can introduce more diversity is through how we introduce foods. So in general, what we're doing is we're introducing vegetables, we're introducing fruits, we're introducing healthy fats, and we're introducing clean animal proteins or clean proteins. So those are the sort of the initial foods. But what's also important to realize, and another point that I really came across in my research, was that our organs, that they start to develop in utero, and then they reach maturation at different stages of development outside of the body. So we actually need to be introducing foods in line with how the organs are maturing. So one of the really important examples of that is that the pancreas doesn't reach full maturation until around 2 years of age. So the pancreas is what releases enzymes to help break down grains. So we actually don't have the enzymes in order to properly break down grains until 2 years of age. So we should be delaying the introduction of grains until at least 2. And so this is one of the most important things that we need to understand, is that a lot of parents are actually introducing cereals, which is grains, as a first food. And this can actually be one of the most damaging things we could be doing to our kids. So I would love to see that really shift and change in terms of what parents are doing, because we actually don't have the enzymatic capacity to be able to break down those grains at such an early age. So those are some of the important points, is understanding that we're building up that microbiome, and we need to be introducing foods in line with organ development. And the other thing that's really important to understand is that since the beginning of human existence, our bodies have been hardwired to break down real food. And a lot of the foods that are out there are actually, man-made, chemically latent foods.
Processed.
And processed foods that our bodies actually don't recognize and can't assimilate and then make it into useful energy and proper building blocks for the babies or for our children. And I think that that's important throughout a lifetime, is that we're feeding our children, real foods. Because I think that's where we over the last 50 to 100 years, we've really shifted away from knowing what real food is.
Right. Exactly. Okay. I have so many questions. So, when did you say that the pancreas reaches maturation again?
Yeah, so it doesn't. So the pancreas, so it first starts to develop in utero,
right?
But then it doesn't reach full maturation until around 2 years of age.
Okay. And what about when? I want to go back to when you were talking about birth and that vaginal delivery versus C-sections. Now, call me crazy, but I thought I read at one point that women who are having C-sections, because we know that as they go through the vaginal canal, there's microbiome present. And am I correct with that? That there's microbiome present there as you're in the midst of a vaginal birth compared to obviously a C-section.
Yeah, so they're picking up a lot of microbes from mom's vaginal canal as they come through. Yes.
So I thought that I read, but I can't recall where or anything. I thought that I read that women who are having C-sections, were getting or somehow obtaining their vaginal secretions and applying it to the child's face. Am I completely crazy to think that?
Nope. So that's one of the ways that we can try to give our babies a good start in life. So knowing this information, what a lot of mothers, if they are having a C-section, do is they will take basically like a swab of mom's vaginal canal and put that into baby's mouth, so that we can basically combat the reason of a C-section. Because I know, there are situations where a C-section is necessary, and then sometimes it's life-saving for mommy and baby. But in order to give that baby the best start, we can give baby some of that. We can give them some of those bacteria from mom's vaginal canal. So I believe that's what you're referring to.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Because I thought, wait a minute, I know I read this somewhere. So they're just putting it in the mouth, not in the nostrils, really, or
you could do that, but putting in the mouth would be sufficient, because the nostrils, it's all the same mucous membranes. It's extension of the same mucous membrane. Got it. Yeah.
And so are women doing this are they I can't imagine that, or maybe this is now the norm. I have no idea, but
Is this happening?
I think it's just women who are in the know.
Okay.
I don't think it's a normal procedure at all, like in a hospital setting. Unfortunately, most babies are missing out on this.
Yes, for sure. So are women doing this like in the privacy of their own home when they get home a couple of days later, or are they just trying, like, who's actually swabbing it and doing this and when?
Yeah, so some women are being educated by like their midwives. So then their midwives are doing that for them.
I
But
see.
so some people have said that they've heard of it from their midwives. But yeah, it's definitely not a norm. But, as women start to realize how important this is for building the foundation, then more women are typically doing it themselves.
Okay. Then I would. I mean, if it were me, I would. Okay.
Yeah.
And then my
Yeah.
my other thing was you said it starts at birth, but do some of like what about the moms that are pregnant now? Should they be eating certain things to enhance their own microbiome? Would that help to enhance the baby's microbiome as well? Like eating things like kimchi, things like that. Is that make a difference at all?
For sure. So yeah, the healthier mom's microbiome is, then she can actually pass on a healthier microbiome to her baby. So first of all, it starts with eating a cleaner diet. So removing major inflammatory foods like the gluten, the cow's dairy, the sugar, and so that we're not, especially the sugar, so you're not feeding overgrowths of bacteria and fungus in the gut.
Sure.
And then you also want to be incorporating some of those natural probiotics like the kimchis and the sauerkraut and the kombucha. Again, you don't have to do it in large amounts. Even just small amounts do help to get some of those better live bacteria back in there, and it helps with the diversity of those microbes.
I see. Okay, so what I have seen, it's so common for me to see babies sort of eating like their first kind of foods that they can pick up and put in their mouth as like Cheerios. I see this so much. So that's wrong. I'm thinking that you're going to tell me that's a huge no-no.
I know it's probably yeah, probably one of the most frustrating things I see, and then my challenge is that it's still promoted within the pediatric community, and I think that it's so damaging to the gut, whether a baby has symptoms or not, because people will tell me, oh well, my baby handles it quite well, they're doing fine on this. But it's about building up that foundation, properly, and you are actually not. They are not metabolizing those properly. Our babies are actually born with hyperpermeable guts, and those they don't actually start to become like more impermeable, where you actually build up the lining of the digestive tract till around a year. So there's a lot of stuff that can get through from the digestive tract into the bloodstream and be causing problems in terms of their immune systems later in life, and causing inflammation in their systems. So we want to be building up their health as best we can really early in life, and that does start with what we're feeding them. So understanding how those organs are developing and making sure that we do that properly really gives our kids a head start.
Wow, I mean, it makes sense, but I had really no idea that babies are hyperpermeable, that their guts are
Yeah.
hyperpermeable. That's actually a really scary thought, considering how much Cheerios is out there, cereal, apple juice, the amount of sugars that, and just so many wrong foods out there that are just like the norm. They're normal that you'll see in the pantry of a lot of families out there. And to
Yeah.
think that may be the start possibly of autoimmune conditions, chronic
Yeah.
illnesses,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, and that's a challenge though, right? Because you might not see it right away, and you might see it years and years later, right?
Right.
So that's why it's so important to build that foundation at the beginning. Yeah, the hyperpermeability is, a natural innate. The reason for that is that, typically over that first year, most babies are just getting mother's milk. They're just getting breastfed. So they're trying to get those nutrients into baby as quickly as possible to give them the building blocks to be able to grow really rapidly. A baby's, doubling their weight. They're growing quite rapidly in those first years, faster than any other point in time. And so they need to get those nutrients in. But really, we want to be getting, high quality nutrients in, like breast milk. But that's the other challenge, though, for sure, is that ideally mom's diet needs to be really clean too, because they need to be taking in the right nutrients through that breast milk. So yes, it's there's a lot that goes into building a healthy child.
Great. And what about, so then at what age would you start to introduce food? And when that happens, what types of food should they be introduced to initially?
Yeah, so I say that the earliest you should be introducing foods would be 6 months. But the longer you can delay, the better. The longer that mom's able to breastfeed, the better, because that is like the highly nutritious food. So you don't need to rush into introducing foods. And the first foods that I recommend are vegetables. And you want to make, like, I'm a strong believer, and I know this is a lot more work, but eating like real organic foods. So getting some broccoli, you steam the broccoli, you put it into a blender and blend it up with some of the water that you've just used to steam it with. And when you do this, first of all, babies are getting to be able to taste what real food tastes like. And this actually contributes to babies having a better palate, so that we're not just putting, because a lot of the baby foods out there, they add sugars to them to make them taste better. And they'll blend different tastes together. So they'll put like a broccoli together with a carrot or sweet potato, because they're wanting those foods to taste sweeter to the baby.
Right.
But if you start them on broccoli, then they will actually realize what broccoli actually tastes like. So I always suggest starting with foods like that, like with broccoli and cauliflowers and avocados, as opposed to starting them with the sweet foods. But then you can work into like the carrots and the sweet potatoes, and then you're working into the fruits. So you're kind of building up their palate, and then we go into meats. So, and usually at this stage, you're still having to blend them. So it's, we cook the meats, we blend them, and then, and feed those kind of as a mush to the baby. But again, they're getting the real taste of it. They're getting an idea of what the food tastes like on its own without us adding anything else to it. Because parents are, they're so tempted to add sauces and spices and everything else, but just having them pretty plain gives I would say contributes to them understanding what the food tastes like, and contributes to us not having picky eaters in the future, believe it or not, because then they understand what those foods taste like. I also recommend that, we're having organic foods as much as possible so that we're not introducing chemicals into our babies. Because this is the other challenge is that our babies aren't able to process and move toxic loads out of their systems as effectively as a fully mature adult.
Mm-hmm.
So their capacity to be able to handle toxic loads is a lot lower than a full-grown mature adult. So we have to be really careful about increasing their toxic load. So that's everything from trying to have them to eat organic foods, that's another reason why you want to be staying away from those processed foods, because those processed foods are filled with a lot of toxic loads, chemicals. If you read through those labels, it's unreal, right? There's, like 30 different chemicals in
right.
it, including, dyes and preservatives and additives.
Glyphosate and all of that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just more of a toxic load that this baby now needs to be able to detoxify and try to move out of their system. And I'm just trying to remember, I forget what age, I can't remember it off the top of my head at the moment, but the liver, doesn't reach full maturation till like later in life, right? So I think it's like 4, that they reach that. So we don't have the full capacity to be able to properly detoxify all the toxic loads coming in. So we need to be really conscious of that and help our babies out by not increasing their toxic load.
Great. And what do you think about supplements? There's like those chewables that I see everywhere. Either it's at the local pharmacy, there's vitamin C, there's Children's Multi. What do you think about those?
So there are some supplements that I do start babies on. I do start them on a probiotic because there's specific probiotics that are designed specifically for babies, that because the baby's microflora is different than an adult. So the probiotics that an adult is on would be different from what a baby is on. So making sure that if we want to give them the best start is getting them on a probiotic right from the beginning. The other supplement that I would tip, especially like I live in Canada, so sometimes we just don't get enough sunlight here,
sure.
Regardless of how much we can spend time outdoors. And so I find that vitamin D is a good one to be, just like a little drop on their mouth is a good one to be giving to our kids to help build up their system. Sometimes, I don't always do multivitamins with kids, but sometimes if their diet is not sufficient and not very well balanced, my challenge with multivitamins is that sometimes they can fill in some of the gaps, but I think they're so widespread that you don't get sufficient amounts of anything.
Right.
But sometimes those can be a bit more of a top up in terms of them getting some of the nutrients that they might not be getting from their foods. Of course, like we have pretty deficient soil, so we're not getting as much of the minerals that we should be from our foods. So sometimes a multivitamin can help to fill in some of those gaps. Those would be some of the ones, but I try to make it more food-based, especially at the beginning, than supplement-based for small children.
Well, what do you think about the ones that are like, I feel like a lot of them are the chewable are like have so much sugar in them. Like they're sweet, they're like a gummy bear.
Yeah, well, I would say that there's a lot of supplements out there that are to put it nicely, that they're garbage.
I know.
That, especially when you look at, the ones that I think the multivitamins that were around when I was a kid, which were like those Flintstone ones. And they were filled, if you look at the ingredients on those, they were filled with dyes, right? That we really shouldn't be feeding kids. And they are filled with, a whole bunch of fillers and preservatives, and different colors, and it's artificial flavors and sweeteners, like all the stuff that we shouldn't be giving kids. So I think you got to be really cautious when you're reading through the labels. A lot of those supplements that are designed for kids, again, often in a lot of cases, those are just good marketing, but not the best options to be giving our kids.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like the minute you see like Red 40 or any, on a supplement for adults or children, it's just stay away from it. Do not buy that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's the same as just giving them candy, right? And you're disguising it and saying that it's a supplement, but in a lot of cases, those things, when you look at them, they have very little nutritional value and are probably more problematic in terms of the sugars and the dyes than beneficial to kids.
Absolutely. Let's see here. What else did I want to ask you? And so did you see a correlation then when you were helping your dad with the cancer, and now that you've worked with individuals with cancer, have you seen, I'm assuming that you're asking them how they were sort of, what they ate as a child, were they born C-section or vaginal? And so are you seeing huge correlations of really unhealthy beginnings to developing cancer later on in life? Are you noticing a pattern there?
So I'm going to say, like, it's a challenging question, because I think that I think that there would be I think that like cancer is so multi-causal that it's hard for us to necessarily put those kind of dots together. But I think that what we do see is that, people who have cancer, typically their microbiome has been disrupted in some way and hasn't been built up to be ideal, whether it began at birth, or whether it began because of poor diet throughout a lifetime.
Sure.
So not necessarily direct correlation with that childhood illnesses, but I would say that, but it has to do definitely with the integrity of the lining of their digestive tract and the balance of their microbiome definitely play a huge role. What's important to understand is that, 80% of the immune system is housed in the gut. And in order for us to even have cancer, we have to have basically a depletion in how our immune system is functioning, which means that we have both an imbalance in that gut flora, and we have the integrity of that gut is out of balance, which basically means that we've punched a whole bunch of holes into that lining of the digestive tract. And how that happened exactly, can stem from childhood, but it can also stem from a lifetime of eating the wrong foods.
Sure. I mean, there are also so many, there's environmental aspects that go, and sure. Yes, I mean, certain toxins, if you work with petrochemicals on a daily basis. There's just so many. It's hard to pin down, but I was just curious to see if you saw sort of a pattern of things as you've been interviewing your cancer patients. I was just curious if you had seen that. But I mean, there obviously are so many causes or reasons, even genetics, that can play a role in developing cancer, and certainly how you eat and environmental all plays a role in that anyway.
Yeah, it's definitely very, very much multi-causal, right? It's not just one thing, for sure.
Right. For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. And then what about if a child, were you treating children at all? Were parents bringing in children with eczema or any sort of issue, diarrhea?
Yeah, for sure. So I definitely, like in my practice, I see everyone from tiny babies that have just been born to adults, and I see a range of things from allergies to constipation to chronic disease, autoimmune disease, and cancer. Right. So my clinic and my practice is quite diverse.
Okay, great. And so are you testing? Do you also test children, stool samples, things like that?
Yeah. So in terms of kids, so like at first, when I'm first seeing them, we are just trying to, I'm trying to do it as non-invasively as possible in terms of, and trying to do the least amount of testing possible. Because if we can get them feeling better without having to do a whole bunch of testing, I typically just do the testing if from what we're doing, things aren't resolving. But, if patients are coming in, for example, with a chronic constipation picture, I do some various testing within my office. So I do some in-house testing to figure out, which organs are weak and what stressors might be out of balance. So potentially, someone might have a fungal overgrowth or a bacterial overgrowth that's happening within their gut, which might have happened due to taking a round of antibiotics. And so that antibiotic may have been, congesting up their liver. So, I'd have them on a remedy, in terms of getting them onto a probiotic and something that would help to remove an overgrowth of fungus, and work on helping to get in another remedy that might help to get their liver functioning better. And typically if we, run them through that plan, and that helps to resolve their constipation, then we don't need to do like the stool sample or further testing. I try to keep it as kind of as minimum if we have to. But if things aren't resolving, then I'll do testing. So that's typically how I will run in terms of my practice.
Ah, got it. Okay. Well, I love this conversation. Was there anything that we didn't touch base on, or anything that you wanted to leave the listeners with?
Well, I think that, like, in general, what we can all be doing in terms of helping to build up our gut health in kids, in our kids, and as well as in adults, is to be cleaning up our diets. And the best ways we can do that is, by removing we could start with removing those processed foods or packaged foods. But those big ones to me are gluten, cow's dairy, sugar, and as well as the industrial oils. Removing those can play such a significant role in terms of helping us to better balance out that microbiome, as well as helping us to heal up the lining of the digestive tract. I think that if those simple steps can be made, that we can have a lot better gut health. And, on top of that, we always want to be doing things like making sure that we're moving our bodies that I would say we get back to the basics, moving our bodies, drinking enough water, making sure that we are getting a good night's sleep with good quality sleep, and spending some time in nature, spending time with people we love, friends and family. So, I think that in order to really build health in our systems, we need to just get back to doing the basics and eating healthy, and we will start to help to build health in our own systems.
Sure. And ironically, I mean, these are all the same things that adults should be doing as well, right?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. That's what we all should be doing. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Now, what do you mean by industrial oils?
Yeah, so those are what we call vegetable, have been, I'd say, like wrongly named in vegetable oils, because people think, oh, vegetables, those must be healthy. But those vegetable oils can actually be quite inflammatory because of how they're processed. A lot of those vegetable oils are actually coming from GMO crops. They have been heated with the various chemicals, which makes them really not healthy oils for us to be consuming. So some of those oils would be like canola oil, soy oil, corn oils, sunflower oil, safflower oil. So those are all your vegetable oils that you'll see when you look at most of those packaged foods have those oils, just because they're really cheap oils for them to be adding in. And I find it frustrating because even when you're buying something from a health food store, sometimes they'll have those vegetable oils in it too. So, but trying your best to remove those from the diet can have such a significant effect in terms of our overall health.
Would you say that you rather have like butter versus canola oil?
Right? For sure.
Yeah.
100%. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and I'm curious what your thoughts are about Vaseline.
So yeah, Vaseline, that's a good question. Yeah, Vaseline is basically petroleum oil, right? So it's basically like you are rubbing gas on your baby's bum. So I am a strong believer in not using Vaseline at all on our babies or on our humans or as adults at all. Yeah.
It's been around forever, right?
Yes. Not be using Vaseline.
No, I mean, literally it's as if you would go to the gas station and fill up a little jar of gasoline and then apply that to your body, right? Wouldn't you say it's the same thing?
Exactly. And understanding that everything you put on your skin gets absorbed into our bloodstream. So we need to be really cautious what we put on our skin.
Exactly. And then imagine applying that to a child whose liver is not able to detoxify. So you're sort of building up these toxins. Without really knowing that this Vaseline, which is sold over the counter, how bad could it be? But just look at the label. I mean, the ingredient, it's just one thing. It's petroleum.
I know. And it says it right on the label, like in big letters, it says petroleum jelly.
Right.
Right.
It's really crazy. I mean, I think that most people, honestly, you can use, if you have a jar of it, you can use it if you're going to go out camping and you need to start like a little fire. You actually can use that put it on paper or a piece of wood and it'll start up a fire. I don't know if you knew that, but I'm a camper.
I didn't know that, but like that makes sense.
Right. So I hike and I
That's what
camp.
You should use it for.
That's exactly what you should use it for. Exactly. All right. Well, Dr. Roberts, thank you so much. This has been like such a great conversation. And so many of my listeners are, I'm sure, parents, they are moms, they are mothers to be. And I think this has been such an enlightening conversation to just know that things that, the Cheerios, it's such a, it's like a routine thing. It's like you just see it so much. You see these children sitting in their strollers and they're just like eating the Cheerios. And I just think that you've enlightened so many people to avoid eating certain things or giving their babies certain things that I hope that we can just continue living and feeding our babies. And even if they're not babies and they're 4 or 5 or 7 or 8, if we can just start to introduce really healthy foods and knowing that it's not really ever too late. And if you're an adult listening to this, that it's not too late. But if you are like pregnant right now or just gave birth to a beautiful baby, that we can always start any time in our lives. But if you start right at the beginning, it would be so beneficial as well.
Yes, I love that. That's excellent because we can basically have a huge effect on the health of the next generation if we just pay attention and help to build that foundation really strong.
Mm-hmm. That's great. All right. Well, this was such a fantastic conversation. How can people find you?
So my website is advancednaturopathic.com. So that's where you can find all my information. And on social media, the place where I hang out the most is on Instagram. And my handle there is Dr. Melina Roberts. And you can come follow me there. So that's the best way to reach me.
Great. And you also do phone consultations if people wanted to reach out to you?
We could, but since I do so much testing in my clinic, most of the ways, so it's best to do an in-person one, but I also have like online courses where you can get a little bit more details, and then I can guide you through on those online courses.
Okay, got it. Because you're located in Canada, is that correct?
I'm located in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. So over on the west coast of Canada.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And all of this will be in the show notes for all of you listening. If you are interested in maybe purchasing one of the courses or following her on Instagram or checking out her website. All right. Thanks so much.
I really hope that you enjoyed this conversation with Dr. Melina Roberts. I mean, it's amazing to me that changing your child or infant's way of eating is huge, and it can for sure influence the future of your child's health. And so I really hope that you took away some really good pointers from this interview. Now, if you want to learn about her and all of the links, and also if you are ready to purchase her book, I'm going to have all the information in the show notes. If you can head on over to margaretromero.com/episode 152. And that is it for now. So if you are not following me on Instagram, you can head on over to instagram.com/margaretromero. And on there, I will show you some of the things that I cook. Also, I've got some new reels on there and overall general sort of health topics and health posts. Also with a mild focus on autoimmunity and lupus. So if you haven't been following me, that is where the action is. And if you have been really enjoying these conversations, I would love if you can leave a review in iTunes. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for listening. And until next week, bye for now.